Okay, waiting for the thumbs up from Melissa to make sure we're ready to rock and live. All right, we have the thumbs up. All right, guys, welcome to what has become a weekly occurrence here. We've basically had some fun and had some special guests over the last several weeks talking about the WPPI annual print album. And in this case today is going to be filmmaking centric discussion. And we have none other than Amber and Garrette Baird from, you said Indiana, which is awesome. And you've been filmmakers for 16 years. And you've been involved in the competition the last few years. And an official welcome, guys. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
This is awesome.
I know, we are so excited. We love being a part of WPPI as a whole, but specifically the filmmaking competition. It's really, I feel like it's helped to make us more creative going forward too. So we just really enjoy being a part of it.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. And I love your background. I'm a big fan of The Mandalorian and love Baby Yoda or Grogu. I mean, I think he'll be known as Baby Yoda from now on, but I love it. I'm a big fan.
He's our baby. We did a whole photo shoot with Garrett's father whenever we first got him. So and he's life size. So this is the size of Baby Yoda. So it's just us. I don't know. We're really super nerds. I don't know if you would call us that. I think so, but we do love our Star Wars.
Unashamedly so.
Yes.
Well, let's call it, I like to call it geeky cool. Like it's cool. It's cool to be a little bit geeky cool. Like, it means you're smart, you know your stuff, and you unashamedly love some fun things. So yeah, I mean, I'm a big baby. Everyone knows me. I'm like 48 years old, and I have no shame about liking childlike things. So
we've been making our way through the Clone Wars, which is animated.
Oh, don't go down the rabbit hole.
Not a child's show though, but definitely animated. And yeah, just anything. We are no nonsense when it comes to sci-fi, so we love all of it. Really, yeah. We're also team Star Trek. It's honestly, film in general is our passion. So we watch a lot of movies and TV shows. Yeah, but that's what we do.
Well, I can't wait to talk about your influences as well during this conversation. But I just want to make a funny note. Whenever you see those terrorist videos and they're trying to disguise the wall behind you so that none of the FBI or CIA can actually recognize anything like that, I think that cloth that you got behind you, it looks like you're trying to disguise a garage or something that you're in. So
it's a huge paper roll, and I wrinkled it one day, and I was like, well, you know what? I'm going with that, and so I just started rolling it and wrinkled it, and then I uplit it, and I'm like, hey, that looks great, but now that I look like a terrorist, I'm gonna have to change it.
Well, that's just everybody enjoy your imagination. Sorry.
It's okay.
No, that's awesome, man. All right, guys. So you guys have been involved in the filmmaking competition now for 3 years. And what I wanted to ask you to start off with, because I remember I actually was running, I was the director of judges back then. And I remember it almost felt like the filmmakers were almost surprised that we were sort of reinventing the competition, embracing filmmaking. Were you surprised about the integrity that we brought, how serious we took the competition, and how much we valued, obviously, your opinion, your perspective? What was your first impression and perspective on that? And were you surprised about all those things?
I was very surprised. There's not to be negative, but there's always kind of a rift between the photographers at a wedding and a filmmaker, and so not always, but sometimes there's a handful of times
there
right?
have been,
but it's talked about on the forums and things like that. And so when the largest organization of wedding photographers included us in their process, that was excellent. That was just so cool to know that you all take us seriously as artists and as creators, and that was I was very, very, very happy about that.
But not only that, before that, there wasn't really a competition for filmmakers. Most of the times it ended up being a popularity contest, like who can get the most likes on their film, things like that, which I feel like it does a disservice to many filmmakers. If you're maybe from a smaller town, our town is 20,000 people, you may not get, 100,000 likes on a video. So I feel like whenever, honestly, a few years before we started judging, we sat in on some of the live judging, and just to see how the whole process is done, and it's done so smoothly and with integrity. It really did impress us for those first few years. And then whenever we got in the judges seat and we did all the training, we're like, holy crap, this is a really special thing. And and that's why we wanted to be so involved in it, because we could tell like this is something that needs to be grown, because I can see how other photographers have benefited from the competition. So I know that our side of the industry can benefit from it.
No, that's fantastic. Absolutely. And it's been great to see you guys grow as judges, as competitors, and just being involved in I guess I think you're in the best word I can say is invested. You're invested into the competition and the community. And that's really, really important to us as well. So, having, reinvented the competition and basically wanting to reestablish what filmmaking was all about, my heart was saying, well, let's do a director's award, let's do cinematographer, best sound, best editing. And I'm like, well, we can't be everything to everyone. We have to start somewhere. And the reason why this evolved basically, guys, was that, as you'd appreciate, when DSLRs started to, with the D5, I think it was back then, or whatever it was, that's when filmmaking really became on the radar of photographers who had proper equipment on their person, so to speak, and then all of a sudden it evolved. But what happened to the competitions? All the other competitions, Weaver and many others just seem to fall away. And this seems to be like one of the only ones out there at the moment. I'm talking in a domestic capacity. We certainly celebrate commercial cinematography and all those kinds of things, but you've got the Emmys, you've got the Oscars, and you've got the big time ones. But in terms of, people who do it like day-to-day bread and butter stuff like you guys. So what did it mean to you that we had a competition to do that? And yeah, what happened to the other ones? Like, why did that happen? Why do you feel that happened?
I'm sure, as you know, I think just running a show is hard. Running a competition is hard. It's a lot of work. It's expensive. And I feel like things like Viva, and there were a few other groups that had not only competitions, but conferences for filmmakers, they maybe just ran out of budget and passion. They didn't have a big corporation behind them. So that really was a detriment to filmmaker, I say smaller filmmakers like us, because there wasn't a space. And what our dream is, would we be able to do that? Heck no, but with somebody backing like Emerald Expedition, WPPI, we know that it's going to get done in the proper way, so.
Right. And you alluded to it just a minute ago about the training that the judges get. The judges just don't go into a room and be like, oh, I don't like that. Oh, I like that. There's more to it than just our personal preferences. There's a standard that WPPI has, and there's training and paperwork that we have to go over and read and to understand the judging process. So it's not just a flippant, a decision, maybe we don't personally like that style, but that doesn't mean I'm going to give it a bad score. It means that I'm going to appreciate the style that it's in and judge it according to our the prerequisite bullet points that we had in our training. So it's not just an off the cuff judging. We actually get training, and I digress.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the reasons why some of the other conferences and competitions as a whole kind of fell by the wayside. And I think some of it, like especially with WEVA, they didn't really keep up with the times, which nothing against that, because we were members of WEVA whenever we first, and actually it's now been almost 17 years, which is hard to.
Well, my first wedding was about 20 years ago,
Yeah,
before I drug you into it.
Yeah, so as a couple, 17 years, but I think, honey, yours was even longer than that. You forget. I think it's like 25. No, let's see, you're 40. Jerry already outed his age. You're 45. I think your first wedding was like 18 or something. So it's been a long time. We forget about that. But anyway, I think it's just honestly hard to do, I think, and to have, like Garrett said, to have people who aren't just saying, oh, I like that one, I don't like that one, like to have the basis of a judging score, like a basis of your score already ready to go for you, really adds a lot to the competition.
Right, and then those personal preferences, like I was mentioning before, are removed, and you judge it solely on the work and just the integrity of the film that you're watching. And it's nice to see WPPI take it so seriously, but at the same time, the whole week is just fun. I think we went to WPPI before they had
before it was cool. No, just
no, but before the filmmaking portion was brought in, we just went one year because it's weddings, and we're not photographers, but we do film, and we just wanted to get in there and see what it was all about, and we just had a great time, and that means a lot to us.
Well, we went
vacation.
Yeah, well, we've gone every year since then, so I think it's been about 8 years now that we've gone every year. So I think that was maybe right at the beginning. Maybe there were 1 or 2 film classes, but like in our mind, we're like, well, we can go to marketing classes, we can go to web design classes. So there's not just, even if you see a bunch of filmmakers on the speaking panel, there's also photographers like Jerry who have amazing things to offer.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. And great comments as well. So just a quick comment as well, in case you've just joined us in these series of particular webinars that we've been doing with a lot of our WPPI friends and family and all that kind of thing. Melissa is actually online right now as well. And so if you've got any kind of questions, if you've got anything you want to ask, Melissa will often answer some basic stuff and everything like that. And she will be fielding the questions to either myself or Amber or Garrett, whatever you guys want. So be specific with what you want to know. And Melissa will be fielding them to me. I have a Google Doc. That's why every so often my peripheral vision, I'll be sort of peering off over that way. So just so you know, that's what we're doing, and don't be shy. This will be the last of a series, really, and up until before we close the entries, which I'll talk about very soon. So let's do a bit of housekeeping here, guys. So the convention dates, basically the live judging, we're talking about August 15 and 16. And the cool thing is that, several years ago, we actually couldn't even logistically be able to judge every single film at the convention itself. The last couple of years, every single film has been judged at the convention itself. So you get to watch these extraordinary films, often not shared or seen by anyone yet, because a lot of the filmmakers will keep them sacred until this. And you'll be able to witness all these films and or prints and albums, whatever it is that your jam is, live. So that's going to be August 15 and 16. The conference is going to be 16, is basically 16 to 19. Okay, so there'll be several days of conference in terms of platform classes, seminars, photo walks, things like that. The trade show itself, August 17 to 19. And the awards ceremony, which is an awesome excuse to get glammed up, have some fun, will be on August the 18th, on the second evening of the trade show. Now, a couple of deadlines. The last deadline for entries, so you must pay for your entries and do everything you need to do digitally by June 16. June 16. So if you're entering the print competition, you actually have to enter your digital file, your raw file to accompany it, and by the 16th. If you are doing it, if you are doing an album competition or in-camera artistry, the in-camera artistry just needs a raw file. Album competition needs your digital files. That needs to be done by June 16. For film, there is a process that you have to do, basically a screen grab and a couple of administrative things that you basically have to do. Print out your form, pay for everything and enter by the 16th. And then you physically have to send your film on a USB drive to our address here. And that will actually be very visible to you on the form. And all of the things that have to be done physically have to be done by the end of June. So all of your online component done by June 16 and end of June, the physicality of what needs to be here, which is basically your films and your prints need to be here by the end of June. If you want the full experience, basically my suggestion is that you come on the 14th. So the 14th of August, as in you check in on the 14th and you check out on the 20th. Also, a couple of things. Now, I know many of you haven't been busy for the last year and a half. We all understand and we all know what's going on. We've all been affected. It's been a struggle, especially in the event space, especially in the filmmaking space. So just so you know, you can enter films that you've basically filmed. There's no time limit. In other words, if you had a film that you filmed 10 years ago, short of the fashion being probably a little bit different, and you believe it's worthy of entering, enter it. You can do that. There's nothing against the rules that say you do that. Also, if you're coming as a conference attendee, you get a free entry. So guys, I'm telling you, you're wasting a valuable entry. If you already attended the conference, then you've got a free entry. So just letting you know that as well. So, all right, guys, let's come back to you guys. I want to know your inspiration. You obviously, it sounds like you're Star Wars geeks, you're Star Trek geeks. You obviously got a few tattoos and obviously some different references and things like that. I'd love to know what inspires you and how that affects your filmmaking and how that affects even your entries into competition.
That's a great question, because it seems like we're always inspired by what we watched last. So we watch a lot of movies and TV. That's just what we do. I mean, it's part of our job. I call it, research, but we get inspiration from everything. So there's a shot that we do at a lot of weddings where the groom flips up his coat and
he'll be walking away from
camera. He flips up his coat. It's like we have kind of a hot spot on him. He fades into the background. We caught that shot from the movie John Wick. So there was we were watching this movie or this TV series, Penny Dreadful. It's kind of like gothic horror. It's so cool. And so the next film we did was really spooky and smoky, and
which fit the couple perfectly.
It fit the couple perfectly.
But it's funny to do something like that, and then a bride that's already hired us, she sends me a very nervous email. She's like, I don't want skulls in my video. Just to let you know, we're very Midwestern. No. We stylize each one to the client. You don't have to worry about no skulls or spiders. You're fine.
Yeah. And so then there was another thing that we've been inspired by a lot, which was the cinematography of the show Top Gear, which is kind of it's a car show, but they're filming things that are
they did the UK.
A lot of the time static. Yeah, the UK version before it changed. Anyway, so they're filming a car that's just sitting there, not whenever it's speeding around the racetrack, but they do it in such cool ways and they move the light around. So, with film, we're always looking for movement. And so that really inspired us too. So it's really whatever we watched last, you'll see, some of that influence sneaking into our wedding films. And it's just a fun way to keep it interesting.
My saying about boredom is that's usually where I find my inspiration is I'll be at a wedding, you've done 600 or so weddings, and it's just like, okay, this is the same thing over and over again. So I'm bored of doing the same shot. I know my couples haven't seen it, but I'll try to envision something totally different for them and really push myself out of that box that I've been living in. Because you can go to a wedding and you can do the same thing, and they're going to be happy with it. You're going to cash that check. It's going to be fine. But to really excel yourself as a creator and to feed your internal creative spirit, it just helps me to push the boundaries and try to figure out a different way of doing it. Just a couple of weeks ago, there's this beautiful, it looks like a castle that we do a lot of receptions in, and I've always just shot them on the front of the door, big stairs, dead center, gimbal, or maybe I'll do an aerial shot. And so I was just tired of that, so tired of that. So I said, hey, can you feeling adventurous? And they have these two big pillars that had it wasn't really a walk path, but we got the bride and groom up on one of these like big side pillars and shot low. And it was just, I've never done that before at that location. I've shot there for probably, I don't know, many years. And so it just by being sheer bored of my old shots, that kind of helps propel us to a new direction. And it usually turns out pretty good. Sometimes not so much, but most of the times it does.
Most of the time it does. One thing we actually don't do is watch other wedding films. First of all, for me, knowing like if I'm going to be judging, I don't want to see the films beforehand, which I think is really important, you know. But I've seen enough weddings at this point. Whenever it's I should rephrase that. Whenever it's like a culture that we haven't filmed before, we will look at other wedding films, but you know, we don't get inspiration from other filmmakers and other wedding filmmakers. And I think that helps to keep your own personal work really unique.
I tell you what, though, I sit through the judging competition and I come away with like, why didn't I think of that? That's we do great shot.
We over there like taking a few notes, but we make it our own. So like no blatant ripoffs. We make it our own, but we're like really good.
It's a catch-22, right? Like, so I think that in any artistic endeavor, in fact, anything in life that you need to learn, which is pretty much everything, but a skill that you're applying for a job or an artistic endeavor, we usually start by imitating. We just imitate.
Right.
Like, it's just, you know what? Why would I not just copy the winning formula of successful filmmakers? Because, you know, it's a shortcut to success. Any business book will tell you that. Find a mentor, learn under them, whatever. And then at one point, no different than a pianist playing Mozart, whatever, and all that kind of stuff. And then it gets to a point where you start to emulate, which is what you guys do and I do, like without even realizing. You know, you could be watching a whole season of The Handmaid's Tale. Doesn't mean that you have to get all the bridesmaids wearing red and that white and it's all freaking creepy. Yeah. No, but it could be like like there's so many iconic scenes in that particular show, as there is many. It's basically applying them. Now, sometimes we like you guys, you'll see that John Wick shot, and it doesn't have to be a groom of the character in the movie for you to relate that to a groom. It's just a cool ass picture of friggin' Keanu Reeves doing a certain scene, and oh my God, that'd be amazing for a groom shot. The difference is going ahead and doing it. And that's what a lot of people don't do. So we start by imitating, emulating, and then maybe, just maybe, we can innovate. And especially when it comes to competition, the problem is, how do you innovate in a world where everything has supposedly been done before? But then every so often, you'll watch a movie and oh my goodness, or Tenet, like, or something that like, oh my God, how the hell did that just happen? Yes. So it's that reinvention that I guess takes it to that next edge. So what I wanted to ask you now, because you basically talked about, you know, filming and doing your bread and butter weddings, and you know, it gets to a point where it's like, I want something more. What in your mind separates that bread and butter wedding that is really good, solid, couples and families would love it, but what will propel one that goes a bit further, especially when it comes to film for competition? What separates the bread and butter to the, all right, well, this is now an 80 plus or a 90 plus? What does it for you?
So you're right. So I totally agree. When you first start, you know, emulation. In fact, talking about the John Wick shot, we do some emulation. But what happens is, if you stay in that emulation phase, you're not going to be very successful, because in a world where there's so many wedding filmmakers, if we all emulating the same people and the same things, if you're just trying to make a carbon copy of, hey, I like Garrett and Amber's work, I'm just going to make my work look just like theirs. And yes, it may look good because maybe you're in Texas or California, whatever, but eventually let's say everybody's doing the same formula. You know, there's a formula that well, I won't mention. Anyways, if you follow the same formula, you're not going to stand out in the crowd. You're just going to blend in with the rest of everybody. So what I like to do, I like our brides to hate our work or love it. I don't want to look like everybody else. I want them to look at it and be like, that's nothing like I want, or that's everything I want. I have never seen anything like that before. I'm hiring them because I want to be very just to stand off. Like, if they're just looking through a sea of filmmakers, I want our work to just pop out. And the way I do that a lot of the times, because, you know, for most part, we've had some exceptions, but for the most part, a wedding, especially in Southern Indiana, it's a lot of Catholic weddings, a lot of the same wedding over and over again. There's just a rhythm to it, and you get this almost the exact same footage. So I like to try to stand out with my work in the editing process. When I sit down in the editing bay, that's where my skill as an editor and a colorist and a storyteller comes together to tell the story in a way that I don't see a lot of. And that is not easy. That's really difficult because there's a lot of very talented people out there. So that's a challenge that I take and just sit down and look at my editing in a different way. Look at my storytelling in a different way. It might be special effects, and maybe I don't use the letter that she read before the ceremony. Just different things that I can remove and add and just make it my own in the editing bay.
Well,
That's
one thing
fantastic.
that's, yeah, great. One thing that some people maybe don't remember, but it is a competition. You don't have to use the same film that you deliver to your clients in the competition. So yes, there might be something that is really heartfelt and wonderful for the couple, but it just doesn't fit in the edit. So you can, like, editing yourself is one of the hardest things you can do. It's like whenever everybody got a drone, every other shot was a drone shot.
10 drone shots in a 5-minute film.
10 drone shots in a 5-minute film. That's like a little overkill. So we've all been there before. So using those tools to your advantage is something that is really the sign of a seasoned and thoughtful editor. So I think whenever I'm watching a film and I think, is it going to be, is it going to go to Silver Award? Is it going to go to Gold Award? Like, what my thought process is first of all, like, of course you have to have technical excellence, like, to get through, the rubric that we have, it has to be technically perfect. And that of course is hard to do, but it can be. I mean, we've seen it. It can be done. It can be done. But second, I want, beyond that, I'm looking for an emotional story that draws me in. And then whenever you're watching that, if anything, like, if you see an unintentional bump, that draws me out. So as a film, I'm looking for that unique and interesting thing that's going to draw me in and make me want to be either the couple or be at the party or things like that. So first of all, editing yourself and making sure that you're not overusing those special tools that we have. And then, like, beyond being technically perfect, like finding the emotion in the story in something that is 99% of the time the exact same thing, So I think that really sets a good film apart.
And like Amber said, editing yourself. So if you have a video that you've delivered and there's a couple shots that are very emotional, that you for the couple, they love it, glad they're in there, but they're either like really underexposed and then brought back up and then noise removed, or maybe they're really overexposed and the highlights are all blown out. You might want to re-edit yourself before you submit and take those shots out and replace it with something different, because that's something that's we're going to notice that. And like she said, this is a competition. It's not just who has the nicest story. I mean, we want technical excellence. So if you can just edit yourself and pull those, those, especially the highlights that are really blown out, that really gets our attention. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. You said, Amber, there briefly there about technical perfection. Let's come back a little bit. What are the deal breakers as a judge that if you see this done? Oh, you mentioned the blown out highlights, but I want to go a bit deeper. But what are the hallmark traits of an incredible film? Ignore the emotion and the story for the moment. So just technically, what will say, boom, I can't even get past this. It's just ruining the whole film. What are those hallmark traits?
I got one.
Can I go? I
Yes,
have
ladies
several.
first.
Well, you were the chair last year, so it's not quite as fresh in your mind. For me, a lot of the times out of focus, which sounds like something that's very simple, but whenever you're shooting a 1.2 on a 50 and trying to get a moving shot, it can be done if you have the right camera and the right autofocus, but a lot of the times people fall short of that. So we see a lot of gimbal shots that are out of focus just simply because yeah, again, it's hard to do unless you have a camera with great autofocus, like the Sony a7S III. Sorry, I have to throw that in there.
And what you guys are you guys are Sony artisans from what I remember, right? Yeah.
Yes,
So
we
there you go.
are.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. So out of focus images are a no-go, again, unless it's intentional. If your audio is warped in any way, that's a no-go.
By warped, like
overblown,
over modulated, so if it peaks and it blows out. And then also some people will try to use the noise removal, and it'll turn it into like a robot underwater sound. That's a really hard.
What if a robot was getting married underwater? I mean,
then I need to be filming that wedding.
Yes, we'll be there. We'll be the ones there.
And I don't know how to swim, so I'll learn for that wedding.
All right, so blown out highlights, we said in the previous part of the conversation. Yes. We basically said focus issues that are not deliberate. I mean, rack focus, that's obvious when it's deliberate. Sound clipping, going too high, too low, not consistent. What else?
Inconsistent color grading. So, like in a scene, I understand that, you go from the church to the outdoors to the reception, it's going to be like different color spaces, different color scenes. That's fine. But, like cutting between camera at the ceremony and the color doesn't match, or that's a no-go. Another thing is unintentional camera movement. So like there's a difference between organic camera movement and a bump or a jitter, so we're looking for that. Like that is one thing that'll take me out of a movie very quickly, is if there's a bump or a jitter and it's not intentional. Again, like I understand organic flow, but if your tripod's shaking, like that's
especially the little bumps. The little bumps can be taken care of. That's not a big deal. You can take care of that. Can I go?
You can go now.
So, one of the things that it's easy to get trapped in, especially when you get your first few weddings that are very extravagant and beautiful and just decorated to the nine, is that a wedding film will have just an exorbitant amount of B-roll of the environment. And that's great. I'm sure the bride and groom love to see that. But for a story, I mean, we need establishing shots, but we don't need a dozen establishing shots. Sometimes we'll watch a film and it'll be almost a minute before we see any person whatsoever. And that's, I mean, personally, I don't care for that. I want to see where we're at, and then let's move along to the story. Let's see, parts of her getting ready or whatever you want to do. But there's too much beautiful, extravagant shots of, look how these candelabras, look at the chandelier, look at the staircase. That's great. What I like to do, and again, this is just what I do, but I like to portray that, and people see that in my films. But I like them to see it as a part of the film with people in it, with people, at the reception. Yeah, I don't really care for the big empty, room shots. I mean, if you as a filmmaker do it, that's fine. You're not going to get dinged for me, because that's kind of cool. But just an overabundance of just unemotional shots with just slider shot after gimbal shot of just plates and forks and the building, just there's no emotion. In fact, some of them will be, and let's take it a step further. So you'll have that, and then you'll also have highlights where it'll be that with just the bride and groom. And to me, that's kind of a disservice to the story, because there's more to the story than just amazing shots. And some of them are great shots, but it's more than just seeing amazing shots of your bride and groom and where they got married. I like to see family in the film. I like to see their guests that are there, their guests having a good time. So again, it just helps tell a better story when we have people in it. I shouldn't have to say that out loud, but
no, I love that. I want to piggyback off that, because I actually, on a personal level, agree with you, because from a photographic perspective, there are so many photographers who will, and brides request that I just want detail shots, detailed. It's all about those flowers or those candelabras, the chair covers. And I'm like, well, why don't you do it with a human representation in it? Why don't you, if you want a champagne glass, why don't you get the hands touching it? Wouldn't shoes be sexier with feet in them? Wouldn't a ring be more beautiful with a hand in it? So I call it detail shots with a heartbeat. As long as I see a representation of there you go, a representation of a human being in those, I find it more thoughtful. And now let's reiterate something too, just for those who are watching or your first time potential entrants of this competition. So don't forget, there's two categories. It's wedding engagement, and sometimes it's combined, where some people might do a pre-shoot and then combine it with the wedding. So engagement only, pre-wedding only, or wedding only, or a combination. And then there's the commercial editorial. It can be basically anything goes. You're advertising a product, you're doing a short horror film, whatever you basically want. You've got 5 minutes. If you enter a film 5 minutes and 1 second, it will be disqualified. If you have your own logo at the end, you want to do all your fancy credits and you've got your name on it, you'll be disqualified. The only time that a logo is allowed is in the commercial entity where you're promoting, like let's say you're doing a Jaguar commercial, and then you are not Jaguar, you're the film production house, whatever, and you're advertising that particular car or brand or company. That's totally fine. When it comes to a story-driven entry, like a wedding, like an event, bar mitzvah, whatever it may be, if you waste, say, a minute on shots that are not humanized, that's 20% of your entry that the judges can't fall in love with the human spirit. So you've got 5 minutes. Now, fair enough. My heart says, as one of the organizers of the competition, my heart says we really should have a 5-minute entry, 10-minute entry, 15, half an hour, but someone's got to watch all these, and several people have got to watch all these. My heart also says we should have a sound award, a director's award, whatever. This particular competition is for cinematography. It is basically the camera operator, and they have to be responsible for at least 50%. So we know and understand and respect and appreciate that filmmaking it's a team effort. It's very rarely you have a one-man band. It's very, very rare. Usually there's a lot of people involved in the production of it. So we know that credit is due for the team, but this is mainly the cinematographer, the camera operator, being largely responsible for 50% of the entry. So I just wanted to clarify that. Make sure you just read the rules and be very, very specific with what they are and all that kind of stuff. So I know, Garrett, last year you chaired for the very first time, but chairing a room, basically, for those who don't know what we mean, is basically, think of it like if you ever walked into a judge's room, or you'd imagine someone needs to control the room. In other words, make sure that everything has integrity, it's got respect and value, and that governs the process. And Garrett sort of shared basically that role. I actually watched, you watched me for a little bit there, if you remember that. And then, of course, you took over and did an incredible job. What was it like, Garrett, going from a judge's perspective and then basically, I guess, courting the judges to give value and their experience and their perspective through their comments and their scores? How did that go? I
will say one thing. Just because he's the chair doesn't mean he goes easier on me. He's actually goes harder on me. So, he's actually a lot harder on me.
It's interesting because I get to watch the film in a different way, and I'm not judging it so much as I am taking it in as a whole and then seeing what my judges do. And sometimes I will bring things to their attention that I didn't hear them comment on. Normally it's something, I think of one instance where I felt that there were some positive things that were over and beyond what we had been seeing from just typical normal films, and I felt that they somehow didn't see that, and so bringing it to their attention, and then they were like, oh yeah, and then having at that point they'd already submitted their scores, and then I just felt that the score they submitted did not reflect some of these talents that the filmmaker had shown us. So just by being able to watch the film, instead of watching the film going through white balance, is that good? And is that good? Is that good? Is that was that good? Is that good? Is that good? I'm just taking it in as a whole, and then directing my feelings towards the judges if I feel they missed that. And in that case, I mentioned it to them, and they were like, "Oh, you're right. I didn't see that." And we did a rescoring, and actually put that film into a higher category, which I thought it justly deserved.
Yeah. So you cool. Like having the unlimited power?
Well, I would do my
power.
Unlimited power. That's an Emperor Palpatine. But yeah, I wasn't going to do that, but I did it. It's terrible. But, well, no, it's not. I actually don't have the power. The judges have the power. I just have the power to bring things to the surface that maybe they didn't pay attention to, not pay attention. They didn't get the first time around, because they're going through film after film after film after film, and it's just nice to be able to be there and to see their reaction to the films, and yeah, just help them along the way a little bit.
You really liked being a chair, didn't you?
It was I thought it was a little less pressure actually than being a judge.
Wow.
I did. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It's a different kind of pressure. I got to be honest. I haven't judged I fill in here and there with different places and stuff like that because I'm involved on a deeper level. But I got to say, I miss it because you actually have all the power, basically. And when I say all the power, not one individual, it's a team effort. And it's a collective decision and all that kind of thing. But certainly as a chairperson, sometimes you feel like a glorified MC, like you're just there to announce it and you just move on. And of course, you're there as I think as Tony Hewitt puts it, the sixth source of wisdom, where basically, yes, sometimes the judges might be so caught up in the emotion, and you've got 5 minutes, right? In other words, if there's something polarizingly off, like a bump, like a bad audio or one scene that was out of focus, ignorance is bliss. If you took that out, the judges would not know any different. So
Right.
Don't forget, you're not showing the film to an unsophisticated audience. In other words, you do a wedding video or a commercial. Well, commercial's a little bit different. The expectations are usually higher, but and then depending on the people that you're dealing with. But let's say it's for the domestic market, like a wedding. It's like you're in a band and you're singing and you hit a wrong note. People are dancing. They don't give a shit. It's you know what I mean? But if you were singing for singers, well, they're going to look at every note and listen to every note. They're going to diagnose it. So don't forget that you are getting experienced filmmakers, and often a very mixed and a different blend of experience. So as you'd appreciate, guys, and you know this as well, on every judging panel, whether it's filmmaking, whether it's the photography room, like in a print room, whether it's an album room, we have a blend of gender, ethnicity, as much as humanly possible, of expertise. Like someone might be well versed in Photoshop, or in this case, post-production. One's a hardcore editor, one's a hardcore director, cinematographer, whatever it may be. So you've got a blend of emotion there, and perspective and sophistication. So if someone is biased to focusing on the editing, that is actually what they're there for. If someone is a bit soft and mousy and they're very sweet and they'll give you an emotional perspective, and then you've got this hard ass who's very, very like, I demand perfection, whatever. I mean, there's criteria, but there's also the way you interpret it, because we don't want robots giving the exact same score. There has to be some wiggle room from your perspective and your perception of what it is. But just remember, you've got 5 minutes. No one's forcing you to use that complete 5 minutes. And if you do have a client video, whether it's corporate or wedding engagement, whatever, just because you've done it for them specifically, and that's the deliverable that you gave them, does not mean you can re-edit it and maybe hide the flaws. Because guys, let's face it. I mean, I got to be honest, just to let you guys know personally, I've done a lot of filmmaking in the last year and a half. Part of what I've done and grown with since COVID, I've directed 2 music videos. I've got a couple of music videos coming up. We've filmed a documentary. I pose, I light, I direct, and I sometimes film. But the complexity of the gear and the gimbals and the jibs and the drones and 4Ks and the 60 frames and 24 frame, 25 frame, and it is endless. It's a rabbit hole, and it is difficult, right? It's difficult to do it well. So all that being said, so let's say a filmmaker's watching right now. What encouragement would you give them if they're a little bit on the fence and they're a bit stressed? Why should they take the leap and enter into competition? What has competition done for you guys?
Oh, what has competition done for us? I think, again, it has opened our eyes creatively and given us so much inspiration. Like, I missed that we didn't get to go in February because it's just a huge source of inspiration. And if you're a filmmaker, definitely sit in on some of the photography judging panels as well, because it just like I get so much from those too, from the photo and film alike. And it shows you that, well, first of all, you're not as hard as this is. I mean, Jerry, now you understand how hard it is. It's really freaking hard to pull off a beautiful film in 1 day or 2 days. And then with all the crap gear, all the crap that we bring with us, and we've scaled back a lot because we're getting old, but you know, it really, it drives us to be better than we were.
We come away with it like, oh my God, I'm going to do this. It just like recharges you. And so all the ideas that you've had in the past, year and a half, you're going to come away from WPPI wanting to execute those plans. And I will say that the most that you could expect to get, the most, not that you'd expect it, the most that you could get is by attending and entering, because it's hugely valuable for you to sit in those rooms and listen to what the judges have to say about your film. And if it's you're going to see maybe some of the things that you need to work on a little bit, but you're also going to see some of the things they like. You're going to see what other judges like about other films, and you're going to take all this information home, and it's just a huge wealth of knowledge that you're seeing from the outside. Because usually, we sit at home, we compare our films against other films. I'm talking about when we're first starting out, and you're like, well, my film doesn't look like this. I don't have that location. It's a $1 million wedding, and mine doesn't look like that. I'm not going to enter. Don't worry about that. It's more. There's more to it than. And trust me, the judges, it doesn't influence their score when somebody has a $1 million wedding versus a $20,000 wedding or a $10,000 wedding. There's the storytelling, there's camera work, there's so much more than that. So don't hesitate to enter that, because you're going to come away with so much knowledge, and it's just a wealth of renewal, I would say.
Yeah.
I want to follow up on that as well, because it's funny in competition, a lot of prints in photography competition, a lot of prints that win usually. Well, I don't say usually, pardon me. Many are of actually incredible locations, incredible dresses, and a lot of photographers feel like they just can't compete because there is a spectacle. Now, I would say this. I think if I was to be honest about it, and the thing is, again, personally, I actually don't shoot high-end weddings. People think I do, maybe a handful in my whole career. A lot of weddings I do are just, I've learned how to get more money from normal people. So.
Can you do a class on that, please?
That sounds really good.
Yes, 100%. But the notion is, well, let me be more specific with filmmakers, because you could get a shot loosely photographed and you get the right retoucher basically the before and after of where this was in camera and where this was afterwards is like night and day. It's like, wow. And I think we call it turd polishing, affectionately known in the industry. Or people say you can't, if you put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. Well, I've seen some unrecognizable pigs with lipstick. So, and I say this as a metaphor, of course, but what I'm getting at is, do you think an unemotional couple, and when I say emotional, not crying, I'm saying an animated couple, whether it's laughing, crying, emotive couple, do you think that an unemotive couple and wedding could be resurrected with the editing and the story? And do you think, and then going past that, do you think would you take a risk in entering that into competition, or you just simply would not even go there? No matter how good the editing is, no matter how perfect the approach and the technique is, if the couple are just not quite there, there's no point in entering that. What do you think about that?
That's a good question.
Toughie,
Yeah, because we've had our fair share of couples who.
I can think of a really high-end wedding that, high-end for Southern Indiana, that it was Indianapolis, and she didn't want to walk in her dress. She didn't want to move around. It was really tough to get any, during the bridal session to get anything. I'm trying to think in my mind, would I enter that in a competition? Because there's the.
Didn't you enter that one?
No. This was at the museum.
Oh, the one downtown, they were not Okay, so you
Right.
know, like we try to use every second we can of photo session with a photographer in us. So we generally will like get the couple walking. Every time we turned around, she was smoking a cigarette. You know, so that was a really difficult one, and we ended up.
And
we
they
ended
weren't-
up, and they weren't.
They were not emotional because they had been
Mhm.
dating since they were in high school and
Yeah,
living together for several years. So they were beyond it. It was, the spectacle was for their parents more than anything.
and the party.
Yeah.
So what did we use for audio? We used the rabbi speaking in a cool, way.
Added some effects to it.
And yeah, so that video, it's still on our website. The couple they were not emotional at all, and I think that Garrett did an amazing. You can edit that. You can edit it. It'll be a different edit
Yeah.
than an emotional couple.
It was more of like a Vogue, like a.
Yeah, it was very trendy and voguey.
I turned it into that because that's what I had. That
Yeah.
no fun, smiley, kissy emotions to work with.
And as a family, like their whole family, even their extended family, aren't really smiley. You know, they're millionaires, but they're not like really smiley people. You know, so like literally, like.
And I did focus more on the reception party because they
Yeah,
did.
they had fun.
Everybody cut loose, you know, with the chairs and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you can edit around and that was like not the normal for us. So
and I did enter that one.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did. Okay.
Yeah. So I think you just honestly, I think you have to work harder in the edit if the couple isn't as emotive. It's so, I hate to say easy, but the edit is so much easier when you have more to work with.
Right.
Like that's just the bottom line. It's easier. So Garrett worked really hard on that one, and he made it very like voguey and like a very like more, I don't know, like magazine shoot look, like editorial, I guess.
Yeah.
It was more editorial than like
anything
like
I've done before,
sweet,
for sure.
like you're not crying when you're watching that
Yeah.
wedding. So
Yeah,
I
It
think
was sexy.
it was very
The
sexy.
video was sexy.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
sexy.
Well, that's the thing. Just generally, when it comes to filmmaking or photography, for that matter, the fact is that we are going to be working with different couples, different families, different entities, and I guess my point was that if you have 10 potential entries, and you wanted to pick 3 of them, I'm saying from where I'm sitting and having witnessed and you know, just know that the judges are going to be connected more emotionally when it's just more animated. It doesn't have to be all lovey-dovey and kissy. It's just, I want to see some emotion, whether it's bliss, exhilaration, happiness, laughter, connections with parents, whatever it may be. So sometimes, yes, you can just know that you'll be also competing with filmmakers that have chosen couples and families that are very emotional. And then you wonder why, arguably, that, you know, yours, although technically nice, it's almost like a, you know, think of it like a beautiful car with a beautiful exterior, but the engine is quite not there. A comment actually from Miranda on the Facebook comments that balance between keeping emotional moments versus the more technical best material is always so tough. And certainly we've discussed that. There's no doubt that we all struggle with that. I myself, when I'm photographing, even filming for that matter, if I can't draw that emotion and I'm doing cartwheels, I'm giving them those little prompts and whatever it may be, I end up just making it technically beautiful. Like it's classically beautiful. The lighting is nice. The posing or directing is nice. And here's what I wanted to say too. I wanted to acknowledge this publicly because I'm in the, you know, I'm sort of got one foot firmly in the filmmaking camp there as well. Certainly, although most of it's in the photography world, but a lot of photographers bitch about filmmakers, about always being in the way and they're taking time away from us and all that kind of stuff. So let me, on behalf of photographers, just acknowledge to filmmakers, and I did a seminar to my audience about this. Just know, photographers, if you're pissed off at filmmakers getting in the way and wasting time and doing all that stuff, just know that they're having the exact same conversations about us and not us not giving them the time. And my advice to you is that one of the first things that I'll do when I go up to a filmmaker, especially on a wedding day, is introduce myself, hello, whatever. And I'll say, guys, for these first couple of scenes, just to let you know how I work, I always choose the light beautifully. I'll always choose a complementary location. I'll pose. I'll bring out the best in whatever I'm filming or photographing. I will technically get my exposure. And then even if I'm doing a static shot, a still shot, I'll always animate them at the end. And after all you need is a few seconds here and there. This might just be the easiest film you've ever had to film because I'll do most of the hard work. Let me go for a little bit. And if you like what you see, great. If you need some time in each of the scenes or before I leave, be my guest. Let's work together. You know what? You and I are not important. The couple are the most important. What do you say?
That's it.
I want to work with Jerry at least once.
I know. Literally, we don't need your pose. We just need a little bit of that interaction. And generally we get it like right after a pose. But if you're introducing motion to the end of a pose, that would just like lift so much stress off of us because
it's refer me. What the hell?
I had a venue manager come up to me last weekend and scream at me that I only had 15 seconds for one shot. So it's like,
oh, in Cincinnati, yeah.
Okay, so I want to get back to that comment. It is really difficult to have everything technically perfect and like get those good moments. But the longer you do this, the more the easier it is to anticipate when those emotional moments will happen.
Head on a swivel, yeah.
You always have to be looking and thinking, okay, well, I know that XYZ happens, that usually will draw some emotion. So you always just have to be ready, have your camera always set for the room you're in, no matter what, and like anticipate those moments. You know that when like this past weekend, when the grandma who is like being pushed in with a wheelchair comes to get her hair done, that's probably going to be a little bit of emotional moment for the bride and the bride's parents and the sister, you know? So you just always have to be, you can get it. You can do it. I know because we do it every weekend, or not every weekend, but we do it a lot. You can get the emotional plus the technically sound shots. It just takes time and
to be able to read the room and then also know your gear.
Yeah, knowing your gear is another thing that really helps with that. You have to be able to use that thing with your eyes closed. You know, that camera, you have to be able to know it through and through. So you know, like, I trust myself with this camera. So now that's the hard part. Now the easy part is just, you know, making sure the light is good and that I can capture this certain moment that happens, you know, beautifully for them.
Absolutely. I know we've mainly spoken about weddings and you know, storied, you know, family, couple, all that kind of stuff. There is, of course, the commercial aspect of it, the commercial illustrative filmmaking competition as well. Tell me, if someone was doing a commercial video or has actually done many commercials, music videos, whatever it may be, tell me a bit about what makes an inanimate object, a product, a service. What makes you want to give it a higher score? What different things are we looking for when it comes to those things?
Right. It is, I mean, switching, like I have to shift my mind into commercial realm now because, you know, like we film commercial work all the time. One of our biggest clients is a construction company. Well, how do you make construction emotional story? I have made construction workers cry with one of our videos before. Yep. So, you know, it's more, I feel like with the commercial, like the short film, non-wedding stuff, it is a little harder to get a higher score because we know that you have control of everything for the most part. Like if you're filming something, you're probably going to have more control over lighting and scene and background and time to set up. You have more control over everything. So your stuff has to be even better.
The bar
you know, the bar goes up so much higher. So you can still tell it a beautiful story with, you know, a commercial video, but you know, your production has to be top notch.
And just think about how can you make me interested in this pen? You know, what story can you tell about this pen? I mean, it means nothing to you right now unless I tell you a story, and that's what you have to. And again, sometimes it's just a commercial for a vacuum. We saw one, I think it was last year, I guess the year before, where it was just amazing shots of a vacuum, and it was technically very well done, and it was just an advertisement for their brand for the vacuum, and it was very well done. Then we saw some other ones that had more of a storyline through it. So, like for instance, if you had this pen, you might do a seeing the pen being used for different people, and it falls from off the table, rolls on the floor, then somebody else picks it up, and then it takes it to work, and then it lays on the table, and somebody picks it up from the table and takes it to another conference thing. Just tell some kind of a story, and because it's like you said, Jerry, it's really hard to make me care about an inanimate object, and sometimes I do that with my ring shots. I will position them in a way and use like a motorized slider and do some motion with it, and then while the camera is kind of rotating around the rings, I'll take some lights and kind of move the lights so the light dances across all of the sparkly bits, and just making that inanimate object come to life and making me care about it, really.
Yeah,
I love that. I love that. I mean, look at the Super Bowl. Like, we wait every year to watch the commercials in the Super Bowl. And sometimes, and does it even have to be commissioned? It could be a short story that you're promoting something. I mean, we've all seen photographers, get out some beautiful lights and backlight a bottle of wine, and boom, there's a commercial shot. Now, commercial, obviously those rules are independent to the photography world and all that kind of stuff. So my suggestion is just know that you have freedom within that category to create. Like I said, it could be a horror film. It could be, look at that little example of the pen, I liked, it was funny. I was like, Martin Scorsese should enter 5 minutes of the Wolf of Wall Street. Sell me this pen, that vacuum video sucked bad. So anyway, I'll talk. That was my dad joke. That was my dad joke today. Yeah, guys.
Yes.
I
feel like
love
music. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go, please.
I do feel like we expect a little more from our commercial films that we watch. So like as far as technicality is concerned, even, so that is something to keep in mind. But I mean, and also think about what we as judges have been watching, like wonder what, the next person has entered, do something totally different. I would love to see a horror film, at WPPI. I would love to see, stuff like that, because that's something that we don't normally see there. So thinking outside the box about what you're entering is something that is, that can really help your score, being thoughtful about what you are entering.
Ironically, your audio is clipping and sounding like a robot. So I don't think it's me, but yeah, coming through the feed, I'm not too sure if it's actually on Facebook at the moment, but we do apologize.
Wait, the whole time?
No, just now, just that last comment. Even now that you just said what you said, it's coming up a little bit funny. So anyway, I don't know if the audience can hear it, but all is good. But guys, it's been absolutely a pleasure speaking with you guys and seeing your beautiful faces. I know that you've gone through a tough time, obviously with COVID and some other things that you've been going through. Give us some hope. The fact is, the world is opening up. I want a comment from each of you. How are you feeling about the fact that we're in the roaring 20s again? Things are opening up, things are getting exciting, and we've got some confidence going into the future about our industry being even better than it was before. I want to hear a comment about some positive feelings about the future as of now, knowing that you guys have been through a lot personally and also globally.
That's a question.
I know.
I'm gonna see the audio not gonna work.
Is it okay? I know I have a lot of voice.
All the audio is really bad. Hold on a second. I wonder if we can get a comment from one of the people watching. It's terrible. Let's just let me mute you and then ask to unmute, and let's see if we can get this back.
Somebody wrote Darth Vader lives.
All right, can you guys unmute yourselves? For some reason I can't do it myself here.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Ah, beautiful. All right, fantastic. So again, give us some positive feelings about like now and the future, and how are you feeling about now and the future in our industry?
I think that this year, and I mean, okay, first of all, WPPI is going to be insane. For those who come, I think we all just want to be around other people and hug and have a party and just have a great time. I think all of our weddings are going to be the same way, you know, and I mean, the last 2 weeks that we've filmed, the dance floor has been packed, and people are just ready for a little bit of joy. And you know, coming from a year of COVID, and then as Jerry mentioned, we had a year of cancer before that, it just know that, you know, we're all kind of in a shared trauma right now. And just know that it's okay to celebrate after, and it's healthy to celebrate after a traumatic experience like we've all been through.
Yeah, and going through what my wife and I have been through before COVID, and COVID itself has really given us an appreciation for what we have as a husband and wife and a business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do it for you know, pushing 20 years, and it's like, well, this is always going to be here. I'm always going to be able to book a wedding. The money's always going to be there. And you get used to that and take it for granted, and even, you know,
You can
taking people for granted. And I'm sorry, I'm a big softie, but just thinking about, you know, it's going back into, you know, we haven't had any of these conferences. And if you're a creator, a lot of times you live a very solitary lifestyle. Your friends don't understand your creativity. Your family doesn't understand you. There's nobody to really talk to besides Facebook. And sometimes Facebook doesn't work out so well for talking back and forth. But just to have the camaraderie with your fellow creatives is just a rejuvenating experience that fulfills something in your soul that you don't realize you need until you don't have it.
Now you
So
see
well
why
said.
he's the main creative editor here. He has a much deeper heart than I do. But you know, I think we're gonna have a great year, and I know that there's so many photographers right now working themselves to the bone because of COVID reschedules and stuff. But you know, it's okay to take a day or take a week to come to WPPI and you know, rejuvenate yourself, because like I've always said, you know, like you, or not I've always said, but I've thought it and I've heard it before, you can't pour from an empty vessel. So you have to take care of yourself before, you know, you can really serve others, which honestly, like one thing that we always teach about, and I'm sure that others do too, it's like, we can't discount what we do. It's a little slice of a person's life that we're documenting for them. And we have to take that very seriously and make sure that we give them our best, because this is something that is, you know, once in a lifetime for the most part for them. So, you know, we're really humbled and honored that people call on us still after all these years to film their weddings.
Fantastic, guys. I couldn't have said it better myself. You guys are such a joy to be around, and given us so much value. And also we've relied upon you to help evolve the competition, as we will continue to as well. We can't wait to see you in person, Melissa and I, and of course the whole community. Before I say a proper goodbye to you guys, a reminder of a couple of dates that we discussed. The live judging, guys, attended. If you are in a part of the world that you can actually physically make it, just know that there are people around the world that are bleeding, that would like die to actually come here, but they're actually legally are unable to come. So just know that if you're in a part of the world and that you can come, please make it. You will do your future self an incredible favor. You'll make the best friends of your life. You'll certainly grow and have the best fun and time doing it. Live judging is August 15, 16. The conference is August 16 to 19. The trade show, which is awesome because you can physically touch and feel the products and speak to the owners of all these different companies. 17 to 19, awards ceremony, August 18. Also, final deadline for entering the competition. So the administrative process of going online and uploading your files and all those different things, you have to do that by June the 16th. So June 16, basically in-camera artistry and album, you are totally done. Once you upload your files, you don't need to do anything else. in-camera artistry, and album. When it comes to the physical prints, you must enter an image, a digital file, and of course the raw file from where you actually created the file. That has to be done by the 16th. And as far as filmmaking is concerned, of course, that was today's conversation mainly. You have to do the digital process online and then physically send us the prints and films by the end of June. So look at the paperwork, look at every word on the rules page so that you actually give yourself every chance to have an entry that has no mistakes and it's all good. And remember that if you purchase a conference pass, you get a free entry into the competition. So guys, don't waste that opportunity. If you don't have the time or the energy or the money to complete an entry, why not enter the In-Camera Artistry Award? Guys, it's honestly, it's going to be so much easier. And as far as filmmaking is concerned, you've got a free entry, boom, you're done. It's already done. And don't forget, there's no time limit on your entries. We know we've all had a tough year. A lot of us haven't actually shot or film or anything like that over the past year and a half, and we don't have anything to enter. Guys, look back at your folio, look back at your films, look back at your albums, enter it. I'm telling you, and I'm saying this again, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. There'll be less entries this year. Strategically, you'll have a better chance to win. So just don't, honestly, we've all had those categories where like, oh my goodness, I should have entered. My image is better than the one that won. I'm like, but you didn't enter. So therefore you couldn't win. So make sure you do that. A huge thanks to our team at WPPI for making these particular presentations basically happen. So certainly Munir and Melissa have done a lot of the behind the scenes work on the competition itself overall. They've been really the backbone of this competition. We've certainly got Shana and Arlene and Lavon and the whole team at WPPI helping out. And obviously it's been a tough time to navigate these waters and postpone. I'm really fortunate that we had WPPI last year just before the pandemic, I guess, hit globally. So we squeezed it in, and it looks like we've squeezed it in just with the perfect timing this year as well. So don't forget to enter. You've got now, what do we say, about a couple of weeks to enter. The convention, of course, is coming up, and next year's convention is coming up too. That's going to be fun. That's going to be at the usual time at the end of February next year. So we can't wait for you to attend that as well. But you guys, I wish you continued strength, health, and happiness, and keep on being a shining light for each other and for the industry. And thank you so much for an incredible conversation and very insightful and thoughtful comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. Can't wait to see you in just a few weeks.
All the best, guys. See you soon. Thank you so much.